Okay, let's just jump right into this explainer. Today, we're uncovering the surprisingly fragile and honestly fascinating financial ecosystem hiding right behind the glass doors of your local shopping mall. We usually just think of a mall as a massive, empty building that fills up with stores, right? And the owners just kind of sit back, kick their feet up, and watch the rent checks roll in. But actually, the reality of how these colossal structures make their money and, well, how they die is absolutely one of the strangest stories in all of real estate.
Here is our agenda for today, taking us through the complete life cycle of a mall. We'll hit 1. The shopping mall illusion. 2. How malls actually make money. 3. The hidden anchor store trap. 4. The co-tenancy domino effect. 5. The rolling acres tragedy. And finally, 6. Selling experiences, not convenience. Let's get to it.
Section 1. The shopping mall illusion.
Now, owning a mall might seem like this simple money-printing machine. Just collect the rent, right? Well, not exactly. Because before you make a single dollar, you're staring down hundreds of millions in upfront costs. We're talking land, concrete, massive plumbing systems, endless permits. Think about it. Building a regional mall from scratch means pouring tons of concrete, erecting steel, running miles of wiring, and building multi-level parking garages. Honestly, by the time the ribbon actually gets cut, developers have easily spent more than the price of a small hospital. And hey, if you buy an existing mall, you're inheriting the last guy's aging HVAC systems and cracked parking lots. That means you could get hit with massive deferred maintenance bills before you even get your feet wet.
And that staggering cost is exactly why most malls are owned by what's called a REIT, or a real estate investment trust. Basically, it allows everyday investors, like you and me, to buy shares for the price of a cup of coffee, and we never have to fix a single leaky roof. It's a pretty ingenious financial structure. They're legally required to pay out almost all of their profit to shareholders to dodge corporate income taxes. But more importantly, it spreads that enormous risk across dozens, maybe even hundreds of shopping centers. So if one single property goes belly up, the whole company doesn't sink with it.
All right, moving on to Section 2, how malls actually make money.
So, once the mall is built or bought, how does this massive machine actually spit out cash? Well, it turns out the rent structure is way more layered and honestly a lot more unequal than you'd probably ever guess. There is a crazy disparity in base rent here. A massive anchor store, like a Sears or Macy's, pays just a fraction of what the tiny clothing shop right next door pays. Real estate analysts actually found that before its bankruptcy, Sears was paying roughly $5 a square foot. Meanwhile, that little specialty store selling candles or sneakers down the hall, they were paying $40 to $60 per square foot, literally 10 times as much.
You might be wondering, why on earth would the owner accept that dirt-cheap anchor rent? Well, it's because they're really renting foot traffic, and that foot traffic is the engine for the other 3 vital layers of income. So beyond that fixed base rent, malls also take percentage rent, meaning if a store just crushes its sales targets, the mall takes a 6 or 7% cut of those extra profits. Then there's CAM, which stands for Common Area Maintenance. This is where the huge costs of security, lighting, and cleaning get billed straight back to the tenants based on their size. And finally, non-store revenue. This brings in money from things like parking, pop-up events, and those bright digital billboards.
Because of how this is all set up, physical position inside the mall is actually worth way more than raw space. A tiny 100-square-foot kiosk sitting right in the busiest intersection, that can absolutely be the most valuable real estate per square foot in the entire building. Seriously, a small cart selling sunglasses takes up practically 0 room, but because it sits directly in the path of literally every single shopper, the mall can charge an astronomical rate for that tiny footprint. It just goes to show that in the mall business, bigger definitely doesn't always mean more valuable.
Which brings us to Section 3, the hidden anchor store trap.
So, relying entirely on that anchor-driven foot traffic introduces a massive hidden risk, and it's tied directly to how malls were originally designed. The modern mall pioneer, a guy named Alfred Taumann, designed these spaces very specifically to force movement. He spaced those massive anchor stores about 3 city blocks apart from each other. He pushed the escalators all the way out to the extreme ends of the corridors. He even blended skylights with artificial lighting so you'd completely lose track of time. This wasn't just interior decorating, folks. It was calculated psychological manipulation. The whole goal was to force you to walk past as much glass storefront as humanly possible before you actually reached your destination.
But here's the catch. The trapdoor hidden right under the floorboards. Co-tenancy clauses. These are legal clauses that literally tie everyone's fate together.
See, when smaller tenants sign their lease, they do it under the strict assumption that the big anchor store is going to be there to provide that crucial foot traffic. If the anchor leaves, boom, these clauses activate. The small tenants are suddenly legally allowed to drastically reduce their rent payments or even just pack up their stuff and break their lease entirely. Section 4, the co-tenancy domino effect. When an anchor store fails, it doesn't just leave an empty, hard-to-fill box. It triggers a catastrophic financial chain reaction. Here's exactly how the dominoes fall. Step 1, the anchor leaves. Step 2, those co-tenancy clauses get triggered. Step 3, smaller stores slash their rent or exit entirely. And Step 4, the remaining tenants suddenly see their shared maintenance bills skyrocket. Remember CAM, the common area maintenance? Well, the massive costs of keeping a 1 million square foot building lit, climate-controlled, and secure, they don't just disappear because a few stores sit empty. That fixed pool of expenses simply gets divided among fewer and fewer remaining tenants. So the loyal businesses that actually stay, they suddenly have to pay drastically more just to keep the lights on in an increasingly empty hallway, which eventually pushes them out too.
And man, we saw this happen on a devastating scale when Sears filed for bankruptcy back in 2018. It pulled the financial floor out from under hundreds of tightly interconnected properties all at once. For decades, developers literally wouldn't even break ground on a new mall without a Sears or a similar anchor signed on. But when the retail giant finally collapsed, roughly 80% of its remaining stores were sitting right in regional malls. Suddenly, co-tenancy clauses triggered nationwide. And trying to fill those 100,000 square foot cavernous boxes with loading docks, that takes years and tens of millions of dollars. It resulted in just prolonged, massive pain across the whole industry.
Let's look at Section 5, the Rolling Acres tragedy. To really ground these abstract financial concepts, let's look at the heartbreaking real-world story of Rolling Acres Mall in Akron, Ohio. It's a textbook case of how fast the dominoes fall once the anchors start slipping away. Rolling Acres was a beloved local landmark. Back in the mid-90s, it hit 98% occupancy. But then, a newer mall opened nearby. Target relocated, Dillard's closed, the dominoes just kept tipping. By 2008, the interior was officially boarded up. Vandals smashed the skylights, letting the Ohio rain and snow rot the building from the inside out. Scrappers were dangerously tearing through the property just looking for copper wiring. This slow, unstoppable collapse finally ended in total demolition between 2016 and 2019, all to make way for an Amazon warehouse.
And this really illustrates the sheer financial destruction. A thriving asset, once valued at well over $30 million, completely plummeted to just $1.6 million. That's before scrappers and unpaid taxes forced the city to just step in. It goes to show that a 98% full mall is absolutely not a safe mall. The line between a bustling commercial hub and a literal pile of rubble, it isn't crossed overnight. It's crossed through a series of small, interconnected legal and financial shifts that owners are practically powerless to stop once they're in motion.
Section 6. Selling experiences, not convenience.
So, with online shopping completely destroying the mall's long-held monopoly on convenience, how on earth do any of them survive today? Historically, malls sold convenience, right? The ability to compare 5 brands of shoes in one afternoon without driving all over town. But you can do that from your couch now in a fraction of the time. While the owners who kept their properties alive did it by pivoting entirely. They filled those empty anchor boxes with things a computer screen simply cannot replace, transforming pure retail into mixed-use lifestyle hubs. Think about it. You can't get a physical medical exam delivered to your door in 2 days. You can't go rock climbing or dine at a sit-down restaurant through a web browser. Today's successful mall owners are spending heavy capital to convert old department stores into gyms, co-working spaces, urgent care clinics, and even apartments. They completely stopped selling products and started selling reasons to physically leave your house and engage with your community.
Ultimately, this explainer shows us that a mall is a highly fragile financial ecosystem. The physical building is really just a shell. The actual product was always human movement and exposure. Without foot traffic, the entire financial house of cards just collapses. So, as retail continues to rapidly evolve, what completely new, unexpected experiences will the mall of the future bring to your neighborhood? Next time you walk past an indoor kiosk or a massive anchor store, you'll know exactly how their fates are tied together in the most fascinating and delicate real estate game in the world.